I'm going to talk about the history segment questions that were asked in paper 1 in our test series. Now, the first question that was asked in this test was, discuss the role of Sardar Patel in unification of India after independence. Now, this question demanded to be written in 150 words. 150 वर्ड में 150 वर्ड्स में हम लोग को लिखना था. Now, अब इस question को कैसे approach करें? Now, obviously, when we write the answer, first of all, we have to write the introduction. The introduction will be, he is Sardar Patel, obviously known as the Iron Man of India, has played a pivotal role in the unification of India. Now, you have to give the different stages in which he was involved. Like, you have to write that when India became independent, obviously it was divided into more than 560 odd princely states. And as per the 3rd June plan of Lord Mountbatten, these princely states were given the choice of either joining India or Pakistan or remain independent. So in this situation, basically, Sardar Patel vowed to unite India. First, what he did was he started throwing dinner parties. And in dinner party, what he did was he tried to convince the kings of the princely estates to merge with India. Now, he also told them, he used the policy of carrot and stick in that. And obviously, by carrot and stick, I mean, he said that you would be given all the allowances and facilities that you have enjoyed. So we are not going to curtail your privileges out there. The stick policy was, he also gave a hidden threat that the Prajamandal movement or the people movement is going on in your state regarding merger with India. So if it takes a violent form, we are not going to do anything in that regard. So it will be better that you by yourself come and join India. He also convinced Mountbatten for batting for India, right? That you will go and convince these princely states that they should merge with India, right? Now, this bore a great result, and most of the states were combined with India. Now, the problem was with certain states, and these states were Bhopal, who wanted to, although it has a completely Hindu population, but it has great affinity with Jinnah, and it wanted to be with Pakistan. But obviously, by Sardar Patel as well as the people's pressure, Bhopal merged finally with India. Right now, the other one was the Jodhpur king who wanted to remain independent, and he was being pursued by Jinnah. Now, Sardar Patel had a one-to-one meeting with the king, and he was finally able to convince the king that you should come with India. And finally, the king agreed. After independence, we were left with certain other states, right? And these certain other states who were Junagadh, now Hyderabad, Jammu and Kashmir, and Manipur. In case of Manipur, Sardar Patel was able to convince the king, and he signed the instrument of accession to India. So thus Manipur became the part of India. Now, the next one was obviously your Junagadh. Junagadh king wanted to be with Pakistan, but due to the public pressure as well as Sardar Patel's role, because he was the person who was contacted, right? He was contacted by the Diwan of Junagadh, and this led to a plebiscite, and after the plebiscite, the merger took place. In case of Hyderabad, Sardar Patel was instrumental, and he took the bold step of taking a police action against the atrocities of the Razakars out there, and this led to the murder of Hyderabad. In case of Jammu and Kashmir, obviously not much role was played by Sardar Patel, but he just gave the suggestion to Hari Singh to go to Mountbatten, because only Mountbatten can take any action, and that action will only take place if he if he signs the instrument of accession to India. Right, so these are the points that you need to cover, and then you need to conclude the things. Right, now the second question is, examine the role of Quit India movement in the freedom movement of India. Now, Quit India movement, many of the students, those who have attempted the test, first and foremost mistake that they are doing in that is, most of them have written Quiet India movement. It's not quiet, it's quit chhodna, right? So it's not quite chup rehne ka movement nahi tha ye. So it's Quit India movement, right? Now it took place in 1942. Now most of you again did a mistake in that. Now most of you have digressed from the answer. And you have talked about 1942 at length. Okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, and the significance you have given, but have not attached it to the role that it played in the national movement. Now, the role was first, it was a leaderless movement, and even in a leaderless movement, many of the young leader took the center stage. And in this situation, when the young leader was taking the center stage, right, and this shows that even if we cut down the whole senior leadership, each and every Indian is now ready to be the leader. So it is a very difficult now to curtail the demand of independence for the Indians. So this was the first thing, how it helped the independence. Second, it made the British realize that their days are counted, because every segment of the society has come, and now even they were pursuing violence, right? So that acted as a great pressure on the British, and now as they were in the war, right? So after the war, they knew that it is very difficult to keep India under their control. So this was the second one. Third movement, the third thing, it saw that even in the princely states, the people participated in 1942. So princely states have more often kept themselves aloof from other national movement. Now they also participated in this. So now a truly all India character has emerged. So now this made them realize that even the princely state can't do much in their favor what they had done earlier. So this made them again realize that their days are counted. Now, the next thing was a host of activities like underground activities were taken place. New leadership like Jayaprakash Narayan, Usha Mehta, with the leading secret radio stations and all, right? And all these people were not moderate like Gandhi, right? And this is one aspect that made them realize that to control the Indians, the further movement that could take place, right? In such situation, it's a very difficult to curtail them. So these are basically the reasons for the Quit India movement, right? And this Quit India movement obviously made the British realize that now India should be given independence. Now this is what you need to write in your answer. Now next question is, write a short note on Gandhi's philosophy of Satyagraha. Right. So it is basically a main topic where you need to study about the philosophy of Gandhi, Nehru, Tagore and Ambedkar. Now the Gandhi philosophy of Satyagraha, most of you, right, have taken, taken a path or written about Satyagraha, which is completely obsolete, right? So it was, most of you were not up to the mark in this question. Now, Gandhi Satyagraha is basically a philosophy. So you have to approach the question in a philosophical perspective, right? Now, Gandhi's philosophy of Satyagraha, Satya plus Agra. Satya is truth, and obviously Agra is pursuance. Now, when it is a combination of pursuance for truth, right, or asking for truth to prevail, right? Now, this is what it is meant by Satyagraha. Now, when we talk about Satyagraha, Satya, that is truth, according to Gandhi, has two aspects. There are two types of truth. The first truth is absolute truth, and the second truth is relative truth. When we talk about absolute truth and relative truth, whatever we think this is true is a relative truth. And for the British, the relative truth was the strong should dominate the people who are weak, right? So obviously this was their relative truth. But Gandhi says the absolute truth is that no one in the world is there to be dominated. Everyone is equal creation of God, right? So the absolute truth is everyone has the right to be free, right? So as every individual has the right to be free, so the absolute truth should prevail over relative truth, राइट नाउ इसको आप ऐसे समझ सकते हैं कि जब वो कहते हैं गांधी सेज कि द ट्रुथ ऑफ द ब्रिटिश इज कि वी शुड डोमिनेट एंड रूल ऑन इंडिया एंड दिस ट्रुथ इज बेसिकली अ रिलेटिव ट्रुथ बिकॉज इट इज बेस्ड ऑन देयर पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ सीइंग द थिंग but the absolute truth is universal truth and it is way above the relative truth. And absolute truth is what? Basically, India should be given independence because every humans are equal and no human has got the right to dominate the other or keep other under its subordination. Now, this is what was required to be written in this one. Then obviously you could go ahead, write about his satyagraha, also incorporate his notion of non-violence in it, which means the greatest of the character which is required. The non-violence comes from the strength of your internality or spirituality, and it is not the weapon of the weak, it is the weapon for the strong people. It also says, you can also write, Gandhi advocates non-violence in his satyagraha because he says eye for eyes will make the whole earth blind. Now all these things need to be written and answered properly in this question, right? Now the next question is, write a short note. We have covered Quit India movement. We have short fifth question, right? Sardar Patel. Okay, I have missed question number 2. So question number 2 was write a short note on Mughal painting. Right. Now it hardly matters, right? So I have discussed the 4. So now we can obviously see the question is basically write a short note on Mughal painting. Now you have to show the evolution of Mughal painting first of all. Now Mughal painting, obviously it started when Humayun brought with him 2 painters from Persia, that was Khwaja Abdus Samad and Mir Sayyid Ali, right? So these were the 2 painters who have come along with Humayun. Now the real beginning of the Mughal painting starts with Akbar when he established a separate department for painting. Now, this painting department was given a head, and this head was basically, it was headed by Khwaja Abdul Samad. Now, obviously, Akbar gave him the title of Nadirul Ashr as such, right? Now, Khwaja Abdul Samad, Mir Sayyid Ali, right? Other prominent painters of Akbar's time were basically Daswant and others. Now, in Akbar's era, obviously the paintings were mostly miniature in nature because the Mughal painting is basically the miniature painting, right? So, most of the paintings are miniature painting. Obviously, after that, the portrait paintings and other paintings did, develop. Now, in Akbar's time, basically the more emphasis were given in pictorial or paintings on the books, right? So the story, 4 lines, 5 lines of the story was written in the middle, and all its corners were decorated with small paintings. And this was the most important paintings of Akbar's time was Hamjanama, which is also called Dastan-e-Amir Hamja, as well as the Razmanama, which is the Persian translation of Mahabharat. Now, the painting reached its zenith under Jahangir, and Jahangir gave great patronage to painting. Obviously, the European themes got incorporated into the Mughal painting during the time of Akbar. Now, it was during the time of Akbar, during the time of Jahangir. Now, it was during the time of Jahangir that the halo around the emperor's head was added. Now it was just to give divinity to the emperor, right? The halo shows Zille Ilahi, right? Jille Ilahi concept of whom? The emperor. Jille Ilahi means the shadow of the god. So it was to give divinity to the kings, right? That's why they were portrayed or painted as such. The halo was used for it. Now the great painters were there in Jahangir court, and even Jahangir was a great expert of painting. He was not himself a painter, right? So remember it. Now, he was a great expert of painting, and that's why he has said that if a painting is drawn by 5 or 6 other painters, by merely looking at the painting, I could distinguish which part of the painting is made by which painter. Now, during his time, obviously, there were great painters like Abul Hassan, and Abul Hassan has painted the portrait of the king of Persia, which is still there in British Museum. Now, apart from that, we have the great Ustad Mansoor, who was known for painting the animals and birds, right? And the Siberian crane painted by Mansoor, right? It is still there. Now, obviously, Mansoor was given the title of Nadirul Ashr by Jahangir. Now, then we have Manohar, who was also a great painter during Jahangir time, and his painting of parrot is well known. Now, during the Shah Jahan, right, also painting emerged, but Shah Jahan was more into architecture, so he can give less emphasis to painting. During the time of Aurangzeb, the painting altogether came to an end, and this led to the growth of basically the regional painting, that is Rajput painting as well as the Pahadi painting. Right, so these are basically what you required to write in this question. So we have discussed question number 4. Now we will discuss question number 5 here, right? So we have the 4 questions have been discussed. Let's discuss about the 5th question. Now the 5th question is about discuss tribal Panchasheel of Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, after independence, India has now again. When I was going through some of your answers, right? So some of them have written about Panchasheel. Now, for Panchasheel was the foreign policy between India and China in 1954, right? And that was that is completely different with the tribal Panchasheel. Now, the tribal Panchasheel was basically devised by Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru only, but it was on the issue of integrating the tribals into the mainstream. And it is completely pertaining to tribal people. That's why it has been termed as tribal Panchasheel. Right? Now, moving further. Now, let's talk about how this revived. Now, Nehru wanted to bring the tribals into the mainstream. And when Nehru wanted to bring the tribals into the mainstream, he was looking for how to go about. Now he has 2 ways: directly go and administer the tribals like the normal people. And the second one was basically advised to him by a senior anthropologist, Warrior Elvin. Warrior Elvin has suggested Nehru that there should be a proper safeguard that is required to the tribals, and their culture should not be tampered with, as well as there should be given the sense of pride in their tribal culture. Keeping all these things in mind, now 5 theories or 5 steps were devised by Jawaharlal Nehru, which is termed as tribal Panchasheel. Now, first one is they should progress in their own way, right? So their traditional occupation, their traditional things should proceed as they have been doing, and they should continue to evolve, keeping in line with what their tradition has been, right? So it shouldn't be like we should straight away go and start telling them that come on, now from today, you will have a laptop and start chatting. Right? So that is not to be done. This was the first point. Second, he said the proper protection to land and tribal land should be given, because tribals are the people who had mostly faced the tribe land alienation problem, right, from the outsiders. This was the reason why he said the tribal land should be protected. Third, he said they should have their control over the natural resources where they are in. Right? So in this situation, their natural resources, whatever the forest and other resources are there, the right of the tribals should be there. Now, fifth one is they should be made a participant in their own development. Right? So what should be done, that the other people, obviously for development, the outsiders should be required, but not many of the outsiders should be allowed there. It should be a small number of outsiders who should come, right, and should help in their development. They make them understand, and the people from within the tribal group, they should come up and make them their development. This was the fourth one. The fifth one says whatever progress or investment that we are doing should not be taken into economic consideration in terms of how futile it has been or we have lost all the money, but it should be considered in terms of quality of improvement and the humanistic thing that had improved out there. So this was the tribal Panchashil, and that's what you required to write in this answer. Now we will talk about another question, and the question is question number 11, that is discuss the role of Hitler in bringing about the Second World War. Now, Hitler has a great role in the Second World War. Now, when we talk about Hitler's role, now, first of all, Hitler, when he came to the power, right, he started meddling with the international affairs. Like, he participated in, obviously, the Spanish Civil War. Now, Spanish Civil War, he was helping the dictator out there to get, their throne. Now, against the popular government. So, this was the first instance that the world was getting divided into two parts. One was supporting the completely, which is called totalitarian regime, and the other was supporting the democratic regime. Now, this was the reason why now the first act of Hitler, right, it paved the way for the World War. And this is why the Spanish War is called the dress rehearsal for the Second World War. Now, second one was aggressive policy of Hitler when he tried to form the Axis power, right? His policy of a military alliance with Italy and Japan, it created an axis, and obviously in response of this axis, basically we have the Triple Alliance. So division of the two enemy camp was one of the thing which was incited by Hitler. So this was the second reason. Now when we talk about the third reason, the third one was the Semitism that was spread by Hitler. Now Hitler said that obviously the Aryans are the supreme race, and he started killing Jews because in his book Mein Kampf he has held Jews responsible for the defeat in the World War I. In such situation, obviously there was mass killing or genocide of the Jews, and this led to mass fleeing of Jews to other part of the country. Now this divided the world into two parts, which is one was supporting the cause of Jews and the other were supporting the cause of Hitler. This is also paved the way for the World War II because there was a difference of opinion between the world order. Now next was Hitler started the arms race, and this arms race has obviously when he started building the arms, now the nearby country France, he became suspective rather. He became suspective that even he will be attacked. That's why even he started building arms, and so did the Italy, and so did Japan, and so did the other countries. Now, this arms race obviously led to finally as the Second World War. Next was the policy of conscription. The conscription was first of all started by whom? Obviously, uh, Hitler. And this conscription also ignited the other countries to go for this one. So the military buildup had completely started, and it just needed an igniting point, and that igniting point was given by Hitler, right? Which by attacking Poland, and this led to the Second World War. Now, attack on Poland is considered to be the immediate cause of this war, because Poland, the guarantee of independence of Poland has been given by both France and Britain, which pushed France and Britain into the war. Now, the next point is to the world. Basically, this person, Hitler, he showed a way that to get out of the economic crunch that the whole world was seeing, and to solve the problem of unemployment out there, it was to build the military and build the weapon. Now, this model was also adopted as an economic model of relieving their economic tension and ameliorating their economic position by many of the countries. And this militarization led to the Second World War, right? So there are a lot of basically, reason. Even the Hitler believed in blitzkrieg, that is, by suddenly attacking, right, anywhere, we can conquer it. This belief also pushed him to go for a large scale war. Other one was, right, so the other one was the German ethnic population, right? He wanted to, on the pretext of the German, right, on the pretext of German population, he kept on conquering one country to the other, right? Like he has captured Czechoslovakia all over. Even on Russia, he attacked on this pretext. So all of this thing, right, was responsible, right? Now, even the secret pact between Stalin and Hitler was also responsible, because it gave the confidence to uh, Hitler that he won't be attacked from the eastern side, because eastern side is the Soviet Union. All these things are the reason why Hitler is called responsible for World War II. Now, question number 12 says 1857 revolt was neither the first nor the war of independence. Now, when we talk about this question is one of the most important question and has surfaced in many of the examination. Right? Now, this is the question. When we talk about this question, we have to start that who said, first of all, that it was the first war of independence. Now we have to give that this statement, the first war of independence, was said by V.D. Savarkar in his book War of Independence 1857. Right? Now, after that, you need to write on what basis he said it as the first war of independence, and as it should be introduction, so it will not be more than 4 or 5 lines. So you will write that V.D. Savarkar in his book War of Independence said 1857 revolt was the first war of independence on the basis that it had a well planned revolution, right? With the use of bread and lotus, which is essential for any war of independence. Plus, it had the participation of most of the ruling classes who wanted India to be independent, and this India to be independent. Right? Now, after just 2 or 3 lines, 4 lines, right, you will come to the question. Now, one of the problem that I'm seeing in most of the students, that they keep on harping the things which has nothing to do with the answer. So always remember one thing: you should hit straight on the head, right? Don't deviate here and there. Don't write so much about all this, it, why, there, that, not. It is not necessary. It is not required, and it is not going to fetch you any marks in that. Now, in this question, you should immediately come that the historian R.C. Majumdar has contested the claim of V.D. Savarkar that it was the first war of independence, right? And he said that it was neither the first nor the war of independence. For this, he has given following reasons. First one, right? Lack of planning as claimed by Savarkar. He said that if there was a proper planning, then obviously the revolution should have taken at the same time rather than the days of gaps are there as we could see, which had helped British to easily crush the movement, right? So they should have taken once in a go, and then obviously it could have liberated the area from the British. So there was no planning, and there is only one place at Kanpur where we have the instance of bread and lotus. No, at no other places we have concrete evidence of any lotus and bread thing. So this is contested. This can't go with this notion, right? Second one was the modern sense of nationality hasn't, developed at that point of time, right? For people who were fighting, their state was their nation. This is why Jhansi Ki Rani said, right, कि I won't be giving up my Jhansi, मैं अपनी झांसी नहीं दूंगी. This was her war cry, right? So she was not thinking of India, but she was only thinking about Jhansi. Third was, there was no one fighting for any national interest. Everyone was fighting for their own interest, own petty interest. Lakshmi Bai was fighting because her Jhansi has gone due to the doctrine of lapse in 1854 by Dalhousie has annexed it. Now Begum Hazrat Mahal was fighting because Awadh has been annexed by Dalhousie in 1856 on the pretext of maladministration. Now Veer Kunwar Singh was fighting because his Jamindari has been snapped. Nana Sahib was fighting from Kanpur because his pension was stopped because he was the adopted son of Bajirao II. So everyone was there fighting for their own petty grievances rather than for the nation. And this is the reason why we can't say that this movement was the first national movement or it was the first war of independence. It can even be not said the first, the term first also should not be used for it, because if we look at the regular feature of this, so we have a lot many movements prior to this one, and as such many revolts have taken before the 1857 revolt, right? Even many Sepoy revolt like Vellore Mutiny, like Mangal Pandey episode have taken already. So on these basis, obviously we can't say, basically R.C. Majumdar has said it was not so. Now you have to write a conclusion, and in conclusion you have to take the mid path. You should say that although all the points that were given or all the facts suggested by R.C. Majumdar, right, they seem quite true, and it makes us believe that it was neither the first nor the war of independence, but there was certain sense of nationality out there, because there some of the facts denote it to the fact, like raising of Bahadur Shah Zafar, the Mughal emperor, as the emperor of India. This means that it was because Mughals were considered the emperor of whole India. So we cannot say with certainty it was just a polarized movement for certain places, right? So you can write all this. So there are a lot many things to write in this, right? So in this question, so this should be attempted in this way. Now we will come to question number 13, right? Now question number 13 says, what are the two broad categories of socio-religious reform movements in colonial India, and how far the Western impact contributed to the growth and development of the socio-religious reform movements? Now the question has obviously two parts. right? So the first part is, now you need to talk about the first part. Now, what are the two broad categories of socio-religious reform? Now, socio-religious reform, which took place in 17th and 18th century, obviously. Now, in this reform, what we see, there is two broad categories. One is which can be termed as progressive reformist, and the second one is called religious revivalist. So reformist and revivalist are the two broad categories. Now, many of you have written whatever they have liked, right? So some says some Indian, some Western, and a lot many things are written, but this was not so. Basically, it's a broad, and academically this has been there. So apart from that, nothing will be accepted, right? Whatsoever you write, right? So be very particular with what you write in your answer. राइट, डोंट थिंक कि ओके नो एक तरफ ब्रिटिश वाला था ना तो वो भी होगा ना, और एक तरफ ब्रिटिश ने किया एक इधर इसने किया तो हमारा सही है ना आंसर, नहीं है आंसर सही, राइट? इसलिए क्योंकि इट इज डायरेक्टली आस्किंग यू कि व्हाट इज द टू ब्रॉड कैटेगरीज, एंड एकेडमिकली हिस्टोरिकली इट हैज बीन डिवाइडेड इनटू द रिफॉर्मिस्ट एंड रिवाइवलिस्ट. Clear? Now, when we talk about this reformist, we will put into account that this socio-religious movement led to a lot of social reform, like abolition of sati by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, right? So, obviously by the act of, or by the agitation of, or by the pressure of Raja Ram Mohan Roy by Lord William Bentinck, by Sati Abolition Act number 5. Now, Iswar Chand Vidyasagar, he came up, right? Now, he came up with what? He came up with Widow Ramirez Act. He has made the pressure, right? And Dalhousie was one who enacted it in 1856, right? Now, obviously, there was a pressure for child removal of child marriage, right? And in this, Brahma Samaj played a significant role, and that role was there, and it came in the Age of Consent Act of 1872, right? So we, first of all, you all write about the reformist one, right? So these are the social reforms which were by different societies. Apart from it, you will write that several societies like Brahma Samaj, Arya Samaj, right? Now Ramakrishna Mission and other, they worked hard for abolition of many of the social evils, and they tried to remove untouchability, they cast a distinction. Now they wanted to promote women education, right, and everything like this. From reformist you will move to revivalist. Revivalist is religious in nature, so you have to confine yourself that now the movement were also to revive the religion. A lot many movement, right? Like if we talk about the Arya Samaj movement, right? It is revivalist in nature because it says that whatsoever evils that exist in Hindus today is due to the pollution spread by Puranas and other scripture spread by the Brahmins, right? So let's get back to Vedas, and he wanted to purify Hinduism and build the ancient, based on the ancient scripture of Vedas. This was Hindu revivalism. Now, even in that sense, when we talk about Brahma Samaj is basically, it focused that we should worship monolith, right? So we should be basically not monolith, basically we should be monotheistic form of worship, because it believes in Vedanta or Upanishad. And Raja Ram Mohan Roy has said that the God is formless as mentioned in the Vedantas. And the God there is only one God which is called Brahm, and the Brahm is formless. That's why he gave the name of his society as the Brahma Samaj. He was against idol worship and all. So again, it was to revive the Hindu religion. Now, we also have to mention the Muslim religious revivalist movement, right? Now, in that, we have a lot many movement, right? So, you need to write about that, like we have Wahhabi movement for purification, right? We have Deoband movement. So we have Kadariya movement. So we have a lot many movements out there. So kindly mention some of this. Also write about some of the Sikh revivalist movement, and this Sikh revivalist movement were in the form of Singh Sabha, right? Now Bhagat Jawaharlal also started the revivaling of Sikh religion for its purification, right? Namdhari movement started. So you need to write a bit about everyone in this one. Now we will come to the second part of the question, and the second part of the question is how far the Western impact contributed to the growth and development of social religious reform movement. Now Western education and Western impact was completely there. This was the Western education which made us realize the follies in our culture, the follies in our society, the follies in our religion, right? It was the Western concept of Christianity and monotheism that has obviously inspired Raja Ram Mohan Roy to advocate this. Obviously, they were taking the shelter of their own religion to propagate his message. Now, it was the French Revolution theory of liberty, equality, and fraternity, right, which was echoing in the mind of the social reformers. And this equality concept was seen in terms of fighting for the elimination of caste prejudices as well as the practices of untouchability. It was the Renaissance movement and the teaching of the Renaissance, that is, humanism is above everything, that had made the scholars realize that obviously the human is more important than religion, and this is why they started fighting for the human right in terms of abolition of sati and all, right? So you need to write all these things in that. Apart from that, you can give the example of Rousseau, Milton, and other. Rousseau, who says that obviously the person is born free, but everywhere he is enchained. His theory of social contract, right, is applicable. Now people said that we need the right to express ourselves, and the socio-religious movement was to a great extent a work of Western impact, right? Obviously, we have now, when you conclude the thing, write that even we have our inner self and the Indianness imbibed in the Western concept. That's what you require to write in this. Now, the last question of history was question number 14, and it was discuss different styles of temple architecture in India with its features and evolution. Now temple architecture in India started with the Gupta period. Now in Gupta period, for the first time, the temple were made. Now this evolution gave rise to three types of, right, three types of temple architecture in India. The three types of temple architecture in India are the Nagara style, the Dravid style, and the Vesar style. Now, the first one, Nagara style, was predominantly practiced in North India. The main speciality of this style was obviously it was built on a high platform which was called Jagati, right? So Jagati was the term used for the high platform on which this temple was built. Now, the Garbhagriha or Sanctum Sanctorium, right, was there in which the idol or the god was kept. And above the Sanctum Sanctorium or the Garbhagriha, where there was a pyramidical tapering structure, right, and this pyramidical tapering structure was called Shikhar. Above the Shikhar, there was a round structure which was called Amlak, and above the Amlak, there was basically a Kalash, right? A pot called Kalash is placed. There is also a circumambulatory path which is called Pradakshina Path, right? जो मंदिर के घूमते हैं आगे, this is called circumambulatory path in English, right? So that is the feature of Nagar style. It also just above, right, just in front of the Garbhagriha stands the Mandapa. Now, mandapa is a place where the people tend to assemble. In some of the temple, now what they keep, there is a place between mandapa and the garbhagriha, and this is called antarala, right? Now, there obviously you will see in many temples that the people will go, they just pray and then move from there, right? So that is the antarala. This is a boundary is created between the two. Now, the evolution of Nagar style was there, and this evolution of Nagar style started from the Gupta period. Now, obviously, it got to its perfection in during the Chandelas, the Rajput ruler Chandelas. Now, they were the people who made Nagara, a style of temple architecture, reached its zenith. And the best example for that is Kandariya Mahadeva temple. Now, obviously, this Nagara style, it traveled to Odisha and other places where there was a regional differentiation created in the Nagara style of temple architecture. Now, the next style was the Dravid style. It evolved in South India. The main feature of this is obviously the whole temple is, enfenced or encircled by a boundary, and there is an entrance gate to enter the temple, and this is called Gopuram. Now, the Gopuram is well decorated and all, right? So, after you enter the Gopuram, now there will be a Garbhagriha, and the Garbhagriha, the idol will be kept. Now, again, there will be a tapering structure, but there is a difference in the tapering structure. They are not pyramidal. There will be a bit of gap like this in the temple of South India Dravidian architecture. And above the Vimana is basically decorative, structure like the cupola form, and that is called Shikhara, right? So Shikhar is very different in South Indian temple, what is there in North Indian temple. Now, Shikhar is the decorative of the topmost part of the Dravidian architecture, and the tapering structure is called Vimana. Now, again, we have here the concept of a mandapa, right, in front of the Garbhagriha. But they also have a double mandapa, which is called Kalyan mandapa there. Now, apart from it, the South Indian Dravidian temple have the feature of erecting two demigods in front of the Garbhagriha, right? And these are called Dwarapalas. In front of the mandapa, there is most of the time in Shiva temple, a Nandi statue is made, right? All the South temple will surely have a tank, water tank out there. So this is Dravid architecture, temple architecture. Now, if we see its evolution, now the Pallavas were the first to master this temple architecture. Now, after this, the development was made by the Cholas, who added grandeur to it and made the temple a large structure. Now, then the Vijayanagar kingdom also added a new feature, and in the form of huge Gopuram, which is called Raya Gopuram, as well as the Kalyan Mandapa, right, which was there where the marriages used to took place, or in on any occasion the god was kept here so that a large number of people can worship God from outside. So this was Dravid architecture. Third style was Vesar style. Now it was a synthesis of the Dravid style of temple architecture and the Nagara style of temple architecture. Now the Sikhara form is taken from the Nagar style, while the other decoration and other things have been taken from the Dravid style. Right now, it started evolving. Vesar style is basically found in Deccan areas. Right, so in Deccan areas, it is the most prominent form of architecture. Now, it started developing by the Chalukyas. Now, Chalukyas of Badami has hugely contributed in its development. Now, after them, the Rashtrakuta were the greatest one to contribute it, and the best example comes as Kailashnath temple of Ellora. Now, after that, obviously, the temple architecture of a Vesar style reached its zenith under the Hoysala rule, and the Hoysaleshwar temple is considered to be the best example for this one. For Dravid, the best example is Vrihadeshwar temple of Tanjore. But for Vesar style, the best example is Hoysaleshwar temple, which is there in Dwar Samudra, which is known as Halibid as at present. Right? Now, this is what was expected in your answer. So, obviously, I hope this discussion will help you a lot. Right? Thank you. Thank you so much.